Welcome back, my Bethel babes. I am back to answer some more of your questions. We, as always, are going to start with the asks in my inbox. So, Natural Blue 26, hey, how's it going? Sent this one in. This is obviously a poster for season 2. It says, thought this was an interesting tie-in to you talking about sunlight in your last video. Curious to hear your thoughts. The barn, the windmill, and very old school plane jump out to me. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the sunlight is definitely a thing. I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say. I mean, obviously, we kind of are thinking the same thing, that it could be a Beth thing. Sunlight is always a hope thing, but because hope is tied so strongly to Beth, that's why we always think it's a Beth thing. And I do really love these posters. They're really, really beautiful. But I agree definitely about the barn and the windmill. The plane, okay, so we've, you just have to examine it, and maybe I should say acknowledge it on a plot level, and then we can get into the deeper symbolism. So I'm not going to talk tons about the plane here, but we have talked about planes and helicopters a lot, and I think other people have done more detail on the plane than I have. But it is a transportation thing. It's a way to get from A to B. We saw planes and saw a lot of symbolism in them in Fear the Walking Dead. On a plot level, obviously, this is how Carol is going to get across the ocean to Europe, so there's that. But here's the thing is, I was noticing when I recently watched a kind of a teaser trailer that leaked, it suddenly occurred to me that we've got a lot of Rick parallels going on here. Especially with Carol. I mean, well, with both of them, with both Daryl and Carol. Just in the sense that I was watching a breakdown of people showing shots from season 2, and there's a part where they're in a van and we see all of the walker hands, like there's walkers completely surrounding the van, and so you kind of, from the top, it shows like an aerial view and you can see all their hands. And that is very, very reminiscent of what it showed when Rick was in the tank in the pilot episode. And then we get a shot of Carol riding a white horse around Paris, apparently. And remember that Rick was riding a white horse in his final episode of the flagship show, which was 904 or 905, one of those two. So I was just thinking, there's a few ways to go about this. I mean, in terms of Daryl's arc, I mean, he was kidnapped, he was put on a ship and taken very far away from his family, and that's very similar to what happened with Rick. He was taken in a helicopter very far away from his family to the CRM, so we could see parallels there. We have also, of course, talked about in the past how that's a parallel as well to Beth's arc, who was put in a car and taken very far away from the rest of the group and into a new place. So it's also kind of a mirror of the Grady arc. But the point is, planes, trains, and automobiles, you know, we're seeing this a lot. I mean, all of them left a different way, right? We had Beth was taken in the car, Rick was taken in a helicopter, Daryl was taken on a boat, now Carol is taking a plane. But it's very similar. They're repeating this arc. So it's just interesting, and I'm not even sure exactly where they're going with that, with the Rick parallels. I don't have a particular theory, although I will say we have talked about Carol maybe being kidnapped by a group, and then you know, because if it's similar to the season 5 template. So we had Beth was kidnapped and taken away, and then when Carol and Daryl were searching for her, Carol was hit by a car and also taken into the same group where Beth was. If they follow that template in some way, obviously, I don't think Daryl and Carol will know that they're searching for Beth at this point. It's not looking that way unless they see her at some point, you know, in a coda or something like that. We'll just have to wait and see. But if they are trying to get home and Carol is taken by a group, that's going to be a very strong mirror for what happened in season 5, and I'm going to expect that Beth will be with that group. So all I'm saying is, in terms of the Rick parallels, he was kidnapped and taken to the CRM, and that could be, you know, with Carol riding the white horse, maybe that's a hint or an indication that, like Rick, she's about to be taken, and that will lead to Beth, you know, or that will lead to, it's a replay of the season 5 template, which I talk about a lot. So anyway, that was a lot of rambling for that, but that's kind of what I'm looking at in terms of the plane, is just that we've seen it a lot. The barn and the windmill are a little bit more compelling to me in a lot of ways. Now, first of all, let's, you know, like I said, we always have to acknowledge the plot level. And on the plot level, I think this has everything to do with Sophia, because we already know that Carol is going to have some Sophia flashbacks, and the barn on Herschel's property is where the Sophia thing happened. And the Sophia thing was a huge deal. It was a long time ago now, so we don't always remember that, but it was a really good example of where there was a lot of misdirection going on. Everybody assumed, I don't know, maybe not assumed, because nobody could find Sophia. Of course, everyone's thinking, okay, she could be dead. But at the same time, everybody was so, you know, committed to looking for her and thinking she would show up at some point. And even if, you know, people assumed or at least considered the idea of her being dead, nobody expected her to walk out of the barn just then. So it was a huge plot twist. Anyway, so the barn, I mean, on a plot level, it's definitely there to represent Carol and her past and the way she's going to be dealing with that and, you know, whatever they do with the Sophia thing and flashbacks and her rehashing it. But we also can't really get away from the fact that this is literally a picture of the Green Farm, okay? This is taking us back to season 2, and Daryl was there when that happened, and Daryl was a big part of looking for Sophia, and Beth was there as well. So when I saw the barn and the windmill, it made me very happy. And I won't say too much more than that about it. It's just, it's very, very interesting. So yeah, thank you for sending this in. And then of course you couple all of that with the sunlight and you're going, you know, where are our minds supposed to go? Because they only go one place, which is to Beth. So I hope that helps. But yeah, thanks for sending that in. All right, next one. I just saw that Daryl is going to be a character in Call of Duty Season 6 of Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone. That is a mouthful. His 3 weapon blueprints are called Daryl's Crossbow, Little Ass Kicker, and Hope Is Not Lost. I know it's crumbs, but of course the latter reminds me of him and Beth. Okay, so I did read through this, and you guys, I am not a gamer. I mean, half of what you said right there, I don't even really understand. It's kind of like Latin to me. But I was wondering about weapon blueprints, and, you know, that's fine that there's a weapon blueprint called Hope Is Not Lost, but what does that mean? What is it? So I kind of looked it up on a website, and it does give a little bit more detail. So what it says here, and I'll show you this picture, and I'll give you the website if you want to look it up, but you can also just Google, you know, Daryl Dixon Modern Warfare, you know, that sort of thing. Anyway, so they're blueprints for weapons in the game, and it does look like they're guns. So I was, you know, like I said, I was going, what is the Hope Is Not Lost? What weapon is that? You know, it says it's a blueprint for a Holger 5.56 assault rifle. And, you know, like you, yes, it's breadcrumbs, and yes, I may be reaching, but I couldn't help but notice the 5s in that. I mean, people might say, okay, you're reaching, and again, maybe I am, but this is a game that's made up, which means they could put any weapon they wanted in there. The Hope Is Not Lost could be a weapon, or it could be a blueprint for anything from like a .22 handgun to a bazooka to you know, whatever weapon they use. It could be a mortar or a grenade, or, you know what I mean? They can put anything they want in there. And so it's just interesting to me that this is the assault rifle they used. That I just feel like it calls back to season 5 a little bit. And yeah, I agree. The Hope Is Not Lost is definitely interesting. And then I'm also wondering why they used the last kicker. I mean, maybe that doesn't have as much to do with Beth, but I mean, Judith has had a lot of parallels to Beth. And why would they call it that if she's not actually in the game? And I don't even know. Like, I don't even really have a theory on that. I'm just genuinely wondering. So it's interesting. Anybody who plays the game, you'll have to let us know, because I don't. And even if there was something super cool about it, it would be lost on me. About the only other thing I have to say is that the animation is super cool. They're getting so good at this. It really looks like Norman in the game. I mean, obviously you can tell it's video game animation, but the detail, wow. I mean, it's amazing. The other thing, and this, I don't know, this is a website that is doing a review of the game, so it's not necessarily tied to the show in a big way, but I noticed at the top of the article, so it's just entitled Daryl Dixon Operator Bundle in Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone, release date, price, items. So you see they're just doing a review of what's coming out. It's out now. It came out on just the other day on the 18th. But at the very top it says, "We ain't ashes." And of course that was a Daryl and Carol line. He said it to Carol, but it was in Consumed when they were looking for Beth. So I'm wondering why they put that in the article. It just doesn't seem like something that an article about a game would put in there, unless maybe someone told them to. And, you know, you could definitely argue that it is kind of to promote the upcoming season, which is about Daryl and Carol, like, yeah, okay. But it's still, I'm just side-eyeing real hard all this stuff, and I don't really know what it means, but it's very, very interesting. So, yeah, if anybody is more in the gaming world or knows anyone who is and wants to look into that more, I would be very interested to learn more, but because I'm really not a gamer, it's not something that I'm probably going to be able to find out on my own. So yeah, I totally agree. These are really suspicious terms, and it's so cool that, again, they're probably bringing this out right now because the next season is about to start, so it's a cross-promotional thing. You know, the season will come out, they'll sell lots of games, everyone will make lots of money, and that's all great, but you do wonder how they're coming up with these things. So yeah, I don't entirely know, but thank you for sending that in. I wouldn't have known that otherwise, and it's very, very interesting. Okay, so I know we talk about Beth's chevron sweater and the color yellow a lot for symbolism, but what about her boots? They had hearts, like her necklace, maybe for her love interests, flowers, earrings, and arrows. Daryl headshot. Any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've talked about the boots more often in the past, in different ways. I mean, I've talked about before how showing feet walking is a thing right before a character disappears. So if you go back and watch Inmates, it's right around the time that, you know, they are, Daryl and Beth are following tracks and looking for the kids. The camera shows her boots walking, and then after that it pans up and we see, you know, her whole body, and we see Daryl walking behind her. But it specifically shows her boots. And then it did the same thing with Rick in 9:05 before he left. Remember, they kind of did that as a promo where it showed his boots and we could see blood dripping on it, and people were making jokes about him eating a taco and stuff like that. But the point is, I mean, the boots walking, obviously, you know, the most obvious symbolism there would be that they're going somewhere, they're moving forward, they're going to be traveling somewhere, and it shows their boots. So the boots are important for various reasons. We also talked about them a lot when we had somebody show up in, I want to say it was 708. It was the middle of season 7. And it turned out to be Tamiel, who was Jadis's right-hand person when they were living in the dump, you know, the heapsters. But her shoes had a lot of Beth symbols on them. And it was like this mysterious person who was watching Team Family, so everybody was hoping it was Beth, you know, so we talked a lot about the boots then, too. And I have old posts in which I called the person Boots with a capital B, like that was her name, because that was just how we were distinguishing her, because we didn't know who she was. It was a mysterious character. But yeah, I mean, I really like your analysis that the hearts could be love interests, the arrows, yeah, Daryl and Headshot. I mean, I think they are very, very intentional, I always say that, but detailed in everything they do about these characters. You know, they don't just throw together some costumes and go, yeah, that looks good, we'll have them wear that. No, everything about it is put into place intentionally and in a very detailed way. So even though, and I mean, you know, it's meant to look like they're very ragtag because it's the apocalypse and they can't just go down the road to Walmart and buy a new shirt. So, of course, they're supposed to look like they're just grabbing random clothes that they can find and using them. But even, you know, the art of making them look ragtag is very, very specific and very detailed. So every single thing that is put, even on a piece of clothing, is intentional. So yeah, I absolutely think that they did this with Beth, and, you know, we don't know exactly what they're going for with the symbolism. These are great ideas, and I think they very well could be right, but I also think any given symbol can mean more than one thing, but it's just so very Beth, right? You know, hearts and flowers, it just represents her personality so well, and her faith, and what she was to Daryl, and all of that. So I don't know that I have really, really specific thoughts, but yeah, I totally agree, and I think what you put here could actually be the answer, and that those things were done on purpose. I especially like the idea that you talk about arrows to represent Daryl, or possibly the headshot, because, again, that just shows that they are foreshadowing and symbolizing her arc, and if that's the case, you know, if they do that even in one place, then they would have done it everywhere across the board, which means everything we've always said is correct. And of course, we don't know that yet, but, or at least we can't prove it. But if they're doing this in one place, they're doing it everywhere. And that is why we always point to the symbolism so strongly. So yeah, thank you for sending that in. I really appreciate that one. All right, I'm going to call it there for today, guys, but I will be back to answer more very soon. Have a good one.